She was an only child, living a simple but happy life. Until everything changed in the blink of an eye. Born to a humble couple, Park Eun Bin grew up surrounded by love, peace, and big dreams. Her childhood was filled with the warmth of a home where love was served daily, alongside every meal in her parents' tiny restaurant. They always told her, "Study hard, my daughter. Build yourself a bright future. The world is yours." And she truly believed it. Since she was little, Eun Bin dreamed of becoming a successful entrepreneur. She imagined building something incredible with her own hands, running her own company, traveling the world, speaking on grand stages. But life had something completely different in store. Everything changed. Suddenly, her parents made a decision that no one saw coming. They adopted 4 children. The first was Jia, an 11-year-old girl. Jia had lost everything in a devastating fire. Her parents didn't survive. No family member wanted her. Alone, broken, and traumatized. Until she found shelter in Eun Bin's home. Next came Minjun, just 8 years old. He had never known what it felt like to have a family. Born in an orphanage, abandoned as a newborn by a mother who never revealed who his father was. He grew up watching other kids get adopted, while he was always left behind. Then arrived Sua, only 7. A quiet, gentle girl. But her eyes carried a pain no words could ever describe. She had suffered abuse inside her own home. Her childhood was filled with fear and silence. Eun Bin's mother found her digging through the restaurant's trash, searching for food. At that moment, without hesitation, she turned to her husband and said, "We're taking her home." And finally, on a freezing winter night, life knocked one last time. A baby was left at their doorstep. Wrapped in nothing but a thin blanket, quietly sobbing, there was a note pinned to his tiny clothes. "Please take care of this child. I have no means to raise him." No name. No explanation. Nothing else. It was a little boy, just 2 years old. They named him Sky. And just like that, Park Eun Bin's entire world turned upside down. The once only child, used to having her parents' full attention, now found herself surrounded by 4 fragile little souls. There were giggles, but also cries. There were broken stories, fears, and deep wounds. At first, she felt completely overwhelmed. Lost. How was she supposed to handle this? How could she share her space, her time, her dreams? But slowly, something beautiful began to happen. Jia became like an older sister, protective and wise. Minjun carried a joy so pure that it made everyone laugh, even on the hardest days. Sua expressed love through every little act, especially when helping in the kitchen. And Sky, oh little Sky, brought an unexplainable light into their home. With time, Eun Bin realized she hadn't lost her life. She had multiplied it. But tragedy struck the family like lightning on a clear day. On a cold, cloudy morning, Park Eun Bin's parents left early, just like they always did, to buy fresh ingredients for the family's restaurant. It was supposed to be a normal day. Just another ordinary morning. But that sunrise would forever be remembered as the day when everything changed. As they drove along a winding road, a truck suddenly lost control and crashed head-on into their car. The impact was brutal. There was no chance, no time, no mercy. The news hit like a bomb. Unbelievable. Cruel. Unfair. At just 20 years old, Park Eun Bin was called to the hospital to do the unthinkable, identify her parents' bodies. The room was freezing, silent. Time seemed to stop, and seeing them there, motionless, lifeless, it felt like someone had ripped her heart straight out of her chest. The drive back home felt endless. Staring out the window, struggling to breathe, struggling to understand how the world could possibly keep spinning after something so cruel, so final. What am I supposed to do now? And the kids? Those little lives her parents had welcomed with so much love. They had no idea how much pain was about to crash into their world. Jia, just 11, sat quietly in the corner. Tears streamed down her face, but not a sound came from her lips. It was the kind of cry that's not heard, only felt. Minjun, 8 years old, asked the same heartbreaking question over and over. When are Mom and Dad coming back? Each time, it cut deeper than a knife. Sua, only 7, clung tightly to her worn-out teddy bear, holding it like it was the last safe thing left in her world, as if that little stuffed animal could protect her from a world that had already hurt her too many times. And little Sky, just 2, mumbled broken words, too young to understand, but somehow he felt it, the heaviness in the air, the silence, the grief. The house that once echoed with laughter, warmth, and love was now drowned in a suffocating silence. Emptiness filled every corner. The family restaurant, the heart of their home, the symbol of her parents' dreams, closed its doors for weeks. She stared at the photos on the wall, her father's warm smile, her mother's gentle eyes, and it felt like a hole was tearing open in her chest, a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. But even with her heart shattered into pieces, she knew she couldn't fall. Not now. Not in front of those innocent eyes. Eyes that were silently begging for comfort, for protection, for someone to say, "It's going to be okay." She wiped her tears, took a deep breath, and made a silent promise, standing before her parents' photo. "You can rest now. I will take care of them. For you. For everything you taught us. For everything we are. Even if the road is painful. Even if I have to fight the whole world. I will protect them. They are my family now." And so, with her soul shattered, but with a love even greater rising within her, Park Eun Bin stepped into the most difficult, yet most beautiful journey of her life. After the funeral, Park Eun Bin returned home. But that place wasn't home anymore. The air felt heavy. The laughter was gone. The family photos were still on the walls, but now they looked distant, like memories from a life that no longer existed. She walked into her parents' bedroom, the same room where she had received so much love, advice, and prayers. She laid down on their bed, pressed her face into the pillow, and for the first time in a long time, she cried. Not just tears, but a deep, silent, soul-crushing cry. A cry that comes from the kind of pain words can never describe. At that moment, reality hit her like a storm. She was no longer just a daughter. She was now a mother. A mother who never had the chance to prepare for it. And there, in the silence of that room, one truth became painfully clear. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready. The kids were still there, waiting for her, depending on her. They had already been abandoned once by life. She couldn't let that happen to them again. The next morning, even before the sun rose, Park Eun Bin wiped her tears, tied her hair tightly, stood up, and walked into the kitchen. She cooked rice, soup, and eggs. The same breakfast her mom always made whenever she wanted everyone to have a good day. Then, she called the kids to the table. No one smiled. Not a single word. But they ate. And in that quiet, painful morning, something shifted. A tiny step. The beginning of a new chapter. Have you ever felt like the weight of the entire world was sitting on your shoulders? Like no one really understands what you're going through? Like everything around you is just darkness. But somehow, you still have to keep going? That's exactly how Park Eun Bin felt. And yet, she didn't give up. Her life changed. Completely. She dropped out of college. Left her dreams behind. To take care of her little siblings. She took over her parents' restaurant. Even though she had no idea how to run a business. She barely slept. Sue woke up crying every night. Minjun wet the bed. Sue had nightmares. And Jia couldn't even leave her room. And the money The money started to run out. Bills piled up. Hospital debts, school fees, food, gas, electricity. Every day felt like a miracle. Either everything collapsed, or somehow she made it work. And yet, she smiled, because she knew they were watching her, and they needed her to be strong. Do you have any idea what it's like to hold back your tears, just so a child doesn't feel scared? You look into their eyes. You see their fear, their confusion. But you can't fall apart. You have to become everything they need, even when you feel completely empty inside. That's exactly what Park Eun Bin became. A safe harbor. A shelter for 4 abandoned children, who saw their entire future in that young woman. And little by little, the walls around their hearts started to crumble. One day, Ja slipped a note under Eun Bin's door. It said, "Thank you for not leaving us." Minjun drew a picture, all of them together, and wrote, "My new mommy." Sua smiled for the first time as she helped set the table. And Sue looked at her and called her Amma, Mommy. No one had told her to say that. Can you even imagine what that means to a 20-year-old girl who just lost her parents and was forced to become an adult overnight? But the struggles, they didn't stop there. One day, a social worker came knocking at the door. She was polite, but firm. She asked tough questions, wrote everything down on her clipboard, inspected every single corner of the house, and before leaving, she looked straight into Eun Bin's eyes and said, "If there's any sign of emotional or financial instability, these children will have to be removed." Removed. That word. It echoed in Eun Bin's mind like a nightmare. She couldn't lose them. Not after everything. They were the only family she had left. That night, she stayed up late, studying, reading everything she could about finances, childcare, education. She made a plan, and the next morning, she opened the restaurant again. This time, with the help of the children. Do you believe in miracles? Because that's what started to happen. Old customers came back. New ones started showing up. Someone shared her story online. The story of a young woman who lost her parents and chose to raise her adoptive siblings all by herself. And the story spread. It went viral. Within days, there was a line outside the restaurant. Some came out of curiosity, others out of empathy. But every single one of them left, moved, touched, changed. Because inside that little restaurant, they saw something more than just food. They saw courage. They saw love. They saw hope. But will everything really go smoothly from now on? Does pain really just disappear? Or does life still have more challenges waiting for Park Eun Bin and the family she chose to fight for? And you? Have you ever had to be strong for someone you love? Have you ever swallowed your tears just to smile and protect the ones who depend on you? If this story is touching your heart right now, stay with me, because this journey is just getting started. The restaurant was doing well. For a while, Park Eun Bin started feeling more confident. The kids were getting better, business was growing, and for the first time since the tragedy, she could finally breathe, even if just a little. But life, cruel and unpredictable, decided to test her again. It all started with a fever. Small, silent. Sue, the 2-year-old baby, woke up in the middle of the night burning with fever, red eyes, softly moaning in discomfort. Eun Bin tried everything. Wet towels, cuddles, love. She gave him the only medicine she had at home. But the fever wouldn't go down. Minutes later, the baby started shaking, seizing. Have you ever held a child in your arms while they have a seizure? It's a kind of terror that freezes you. It's watching life slip through your fingers and feeling completely powerless. Park Eun Bin grabbed Sue in her arms and ran to the nearest hospital. At the front desk, she screamed, "Please! Someone help my baby!" Minutes felt like hours. Doctors rushed him into the emergency room, and the door closed. She stood outside, alone, legs trembling, gasping for air. In her wallet, just 18,000 won, not even enough to cover transport. And the hospital wanted an upfront deposit to continue treatment. Desperate, she called clients, neighbors, anyone she could think of. No one answered. Out of instinct, she ran back to the restaurant, opened the little donation box customers had left, and grabbed every coin, every note. No pride, no shame, because in that moment, Sue's life was worth more than anything. Meanwhile, the other kids were home, alone. Ja tried to prepare dinner. Minjun placed a chair by the door, waiting for his sister to come back. Sua cried endlessly, hugging her adoptive mom's pillow. They didn't know what was happening, but they could feel something bad was in the air. Hours later, Eun Bin came back, holding Sue in her arms. Her eyes swollen, but alive. "He's out of danger," she said. But relief didn't last long. That same week, a gas leak at the restaurant caused a small fire in the kitchen. It didn't destroy the place, but it was enough for the authorities to shut it down indefinitely. No food, no income, no savings. And as if that wasn't enough, the kids' school sent a notice. If tuition isn't paid within 15 days, the students will be temporarily suspended. Have you ever gone through a phase where everything falls apart at once? When every piece of news feels like a punch in the gut? When you look up to the sky and scream, in silence, "Why is this happening to me?" That's exactly how she felt. Rock bottom. But it was right there in the darkest place that something extraordinary began to grow. That night, while everyone was asleep, Park Eun Bin walked out to the balcony. She brought a blanket, a cup of tea, and her parents' photo. She sat on the floor, looked at the cloudy sky, and whispered with tears running down her face, "If you're listening, please help me. Give me strength, because I can't take it anymore." The next morning, she woke up with an idea. Simple, but powerful. What if people could come to her house to eat? With the restaurant shut down, she could turn the garage into a small homemade delivery kitchen. She created a simple menu, called Every Old Customer, posted on social media. The kids helped pack the meals. And during the first week, nothing. Not a single order. Second week, 2 small orders. On the third, a woman who had once eaten at the restaurant posted a video. She told the whole story: the fire, the hospital, Eun Bin's strength and courage. The video went viral. And the next day, over 70 orders in less than an hour. She didn't have the structure, or enough hands. But she had heart. She had strength. And she was not going to give up now. Do you believe love can overcome the impossible? Because that's what held everything together. There were no sponsors, no luck, just love. Every meal she delivered carried the taste of survival. Each box had a handwritten note inside. "Thank you for helping our family keep going." But the drama wasn't over. During one delivery, a malicious customer secretly filmed her improvised kitchen. Mocking her humble setup, they laughed and said, "Is this the new internet entrepreneur? Look where she's cooking from." The video went viral. Again. But this time filled with hate. Cruel comments flooded in. They called her a scammer, said she was using the kids to make money, that it was all fake. Orders dropped. She had a panic attack, collapsed inside her home, right in front of the kids. When she woke up, Ja was gently pressing a cold wet towel to her forehead. Minjun was holding her hand, and Sua whispered softly, "Don't die, Mommy." That moment was a rebirth. She realized she couldn't let the hate win, couldn't give life that satisfaction. She made a new video, told the truth with teary eyes, showed the photos, the hospital receipts, every proof, shared every pain, every step. And this time, the internet stood by her side. Orders exploded once again. A network of kindness formed. People offered help, equipment, space, and volunteered. Little by little, Eun Bin rebuilt the restaurant. With a new name, Casa Promesa, Promise House, named after the promise she made to her parents in her bedroom after the tragedy. "I will never let my siblings be alone." And you, watching this video, can you even imagine the strength it takes to endure all this? And still wake up every day, look into 4 little faces, and say, "It's going to be okay." Park Eun Bin's story isn't about perfection. It's about courage. It's about faith. It's about a love that refuses to die, even when everything seems lost. And what's coming next will touch your heart even deeper. Time went by. The pain of losing her parents still lived deep in Park Eun Bin's heart, but her strength grew with every sunrise. Between pots, school notebooks, and countless sleepless nights, she learned how to be a mother, a sister, a protector, and the sole provider. The young woman who once dreamed of becoming an entrepreneur had now become the backbone of a family that depended entirely on her love and courage to survive. But life hadn't been kind. The restaurant that was once full of life now struggled just to keep the doors open. Bills kept piling up. The fridge was getting emptier by the day. She tried her best to smile in front of the kids, but deep down, the truth was, she could barely sleep from the weight of her worries. "Will I be able to pay the rent this month?" she whispered to herself, scrubbing dishes late into the night. "Will there be enough food for everyone tomorrow?" Then, one night, little Minjun spiked a high fever. Eun Bin rushed him to the hospital, her heart pounding with fear. Memories of her parents came crashing down like a punch to the chest as she held the boy's burning hand tightly. "Ma'am, he needs to be admitted for tests," said the nurse gently. But she didn't have the money. Tears streamed down her face as she begged, explaining that she would pay little by little, that she would work as much as needed. And then, like a miracle, the nurse returned with news. "Don't worry. Someone already covered everything. You don't owe anything." Someone, anonymous. Eun Bin didn't know who it was. She just pressed her hands together, looked up with teary eyes, and whispered a heartfelt thank you to God, squeezing Minjun's tiny hand with all the love she had. Days later, back at the restaurant, life carried on. Hard, yes, but with a flicker of hope. Park Eun Bin continued serving her dishes, made with love and soul, even if they were simple meals. And it was right there, between stir-fried rice and bowls of hot soup, that fate decided to shift her story once again. On a rainy afternoon, a young man walked in, well-dressed, with curious eyes. He seemed like just a passerby. He sat quietly, observing every detail, as if the place carried some special kind of energy. Eun Bin walked over, humble as always, the exhaustion quietly reflected in her eyes. "Good afternoon. Can I recommend today's special? It's simple, but made with love." He smiled gently and nodded. And with every bite, it wasn't just food he tasted, it was the flavor of her struggle, her pain, her resilience, and her endless hope. That same evening, he came back. Then again the next day. And the next. He didn't say much at first, but his eyes followed her, not with pity, but with deep admiration. Slowly, he started talking to her. First about the food, then about life. "You cook like someone who has cried a lot," he said one day. She laughed, surprised, but she didn't deny it. His name was Ji-hoon, and what Park Eun Bin didn't know was that he already knew her story. He had come across a video online, a touching post from a customer sharing the story of a young woman raising 4 children on her own, fighting to keep her late parents' restaurant alive. He was captivated, moved, and he decided he had to meet her. Without telling her who he was, Ji-hoon started visiting the restaurant every single day. Quietly, secretly, he began paying off some of her overdue bills. Water, electricity, rent. He sent the payments anonymously, afraid that revealing himself might hurt her sense of dignity. But even without knowing who her guardian angel was, Eun Bin felt it deep in her heart. Something good was coming. Days went by, and Ji-hoon kept visiting the restaurant with a frequency that could no longer be called casual. He already knew the menu by heart, but it wasn't the food that brought him back every single day. It was her. The woman who, even exhausted, still smiled while serving each plate. The woman whose tired eyes would light up whenever she spoke about the children's dreams. The woman who, even after losing everything, still believed she could rebuild a home with her own 2 hands. Ji-hoon's heart was already hers, even if Eun Bin didn't know it yet. Until one afternoon, while washing the dishes and staring out the window, she saw something unusual. A well-dressed woman in high heels stopped right in front of the restaurant. She walked in with a warm and polite smile. "Good afternoon. My name is Seori. I'm a representative of an expanding restaurant chain. We discovered your place through social media, and the incredible impact of your story." Eun Bin's eyes widened, confused. "We'd like to make you an offer. A partnership. To expand your restaurant. To turn it into something bigger. Your food is wonderful. But your heart, your story, is even more inspiring." She stood silent for a few seconds. Then, tears started falling. Not because of the proposal itself, but because for the first time in a very long time, someone saw her as more than just a survivor. For the first time, she saw a future. Without hesitation, she accepted. The woman shook her hand firmly and left, promising to contact her soon. But there was something Eun Bin didn't know. Seori wasn't just any representative. She was Ji-hoon's personal assistant. And Ji-hoon, he was the owner of that restaurant chain. He was the one who asked Seori to present the offer, without mentioning his name. Ji-hoon needed to know if Eun Bin would accept the project for what it was. For her faith, not out of pity, or because she knew where the money was coming from. A few days later, in that same little restaurant where everything began, Ji-hoon waited until closing time. The kids were already home, fast asleep, and Eun Bin was wiping down the tables. He walked toward her, holding an envelope, his smile nervous, his hands slightly shaking. "Eun Bin, there's something I need to tell you." She stopped and looked at him, confused. "That proposal you received, it came from me. Seori is my assistant. I'm the owner of the restaurant chain." The world seemed to freeze. She blinked several times, struggling to process. "You?" "Yes. Ever since the day I saw that video about your story, something shifted inside me. I had never met someone so strong. Someone who loves so deeply. At first, I came here out of curiosity. Then, admiration. And now, because I love you." Tears streamed down her face. "Why? Why did you do all of this?" In silence, he took a deep breath. "Because I never wanted you to think I was buying your affection. I needed you to see me for who I really am. A man who fell in love with the most incredible woman I've ever met." Slowly, Eun Bin stepped closer. "You're crazy. Crazy about me." And she hugged him. Right there, in the middle of that humble restaurant, filled with memories, a love was born. A love that would change their lives forever. Years passed. That little restaurant turned into a national chain. Eun Bin's homemade recipes won the hearts and stomachs of an entire country. But she never stopped working with her own hands. Never stopped caring for every little detail, just like when she used to wash the dishes alone. Ji-hoon stood by her side. He became a father to the children. Together, they built a new family. And together, they overcame every storm. Ja became a doctor. Sua, a chef. Minjun studied business management. And little Sky, now a tall, gentle young man, was studying to become a teacher for underprivileged kids. But life always has another test. One night, as she was closing the restaurant with Ji-hoon, Eun Bin suddenly collapsed, gasping for air. The panic was overwhelming. Ji-hoon rushed her to the hospital. The diagnosis was devastating. A brain aneurysm had ruptured. Between life and death, Park Eun Bin was rushed into emergency surgery. The lead surgeon looked at Ji-hoon with tears in her eyes. "I will save her. I promise." It was Ja. Her daughter, now a doctor, was the one stepping into that operating room, with the same courage and strength her mother had taught her. Hours passed. The tension was unbearable. The now-grown children huddled together in the hallway, crying, praying, remembering every moment of their lives with the woman who saved them from pain, from abandonment, from nothing. When Ja finally stepped out, her forehead was covered in sweat, but there was a faint, hopeful smile on her face. "She's going to live." Tears flooded the room. Ji-hoon dropped to his knees, thanking God for giving him another chance, another chapter, with a woman who had changed his life forever. Eun Bin woke up days later, weak, but alive. And when she opened her eyes, there they were. Her children. Strong. United. Her success wasn't just the restaurant. Her greatest success was the family she built, with sacrifice, with courage, and with love. She smiled, and with a fragile voice, whispered, "You are my greatest recipe, my greatest miracle." The story of Park Eun Bin teaches us that life can be cruel, but it can also be beautiful. That miracles often come disguised as small acts of love. And that true wealth isn't in money, but in the lives we touch, even when we feel like we have nothing left to give. She lost her parents. She almost lost her home. She almost lost her own life. But she never, ever, lost faith. She chose to fight. She chose to love. And because of that, the universe answered her with kindness. And you, listening to this story right now, what would you do if life tested you in the most painful way possible? Would you give up? Or would you keep fighting, even without any guarantees? The story of Park Eun Bin is a powerful reminder. Even when everything feels lost, there's still room for a new beginning. There's still love. There's still hope. Maybe your story is just beginning. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize that every battle, every tear, was shaping you into the incredible person you are becoming. Life is hard, but love is stronger. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment sharing how this made you feel. And send this video to someone who needs hope today. Because you might just be the miracle someone is praying for. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.